This video is extremely important. You might not think so, but extremely important because there is a lot of different rules, specific rules that are being tested out that are totally different than the NFL regular season for the Pro Bowl. You're in the right spot. You're in the right spot. You're going to be prepared. You're going to be prepared then. More than 50% of the field's probably playing and betting this weekend. So you're here. Congratulations. You found the right video. Let's break it down right now. Exactly the strategy, and it's a good one, to win on the Pro Bowl slate. Ladies and gentlemen, you beautiful fellas out there, I'm excited to have you. And yeah, oh, it's gimmicky. Oh, it's the Pro Bowl. Sure. One, it's fun. Two, there's six-figure prize pools on DFS, and there's ways to bet this game and props and things along those. So there is serious edges. I mean, real edges on the Pro Bowl slate that not a lot of people are going to be making content for, but of course your boy is, and not a lot of people are going to remember the Pro Bowls here until like Saturday or Sunday morning, and they last second put stuff in. Oh, Jonathan Taylor, he was so good this year. Oh my God, MVP can. Yeah, maybe the worst play on the slate is Jonathan Taylor, but let me tell you why. Let's do this position by position, right? How we break down showdown slates and props in general, and we'll start with the rules for each position and exactly why that's going to make them a good or bad play. And we can start with the quarterback position. And the quarterbacks are on the screen right now, and you can see there's 3 from each conference. There's a bunch of replacements in here. We didn't have a Pro Bowl last year. The last time you saw the Pro Bowl, Lamar Jackson ended up starting. He played almost the whole first half, and we can talk about why. And he was like the most valuable player. But normally that's not going to be, normally it's not going to be the case that quarterbacks are elite plays, especially when they are expensive. Here's the thing to know about the quarterback position. There's 3 per team. Each quarterback is going to play about a quarter to a quarter and a half. Guessing which one has the touchdown or which one throws for 150 yards is kind of a big shrug emoji. They're all playing with fantastic wide receivers. The defenses can't really blitz or do anything against them. So it's a big shrug emoji. So why pay up for the guys that everybody else is going to pay up for? Spend your salary cap there. By the way, you really don't need to spend anywhere near your total salary cap here. So the way that I see it is, okay, these quarterbacks like Justin Herbert, Mahomes, obviously they both can't start this game. The starting quarterback, I don't really care who it's going to be. Oh, but you might say Kyler and Lamar, they're going to run and be bumble. No, not really. They don't run. They're not trying to get hurt in this game, right? There's no blitz. There's no reason to run. They just throw deep passes. They throw 20-plus yard passes. There's not much mobile running at all, whether it's the running backs or if it's the quarterback. So I see these quarterbacks, and I just say, okay, I'm somewhat interested in all of them. Obviously, the cheaper ones, like a Kirk Cousins, who we know is a solid quarterback at just 6,800, who's probably going to play a quarter to a quarter and a half. Those guys start to seem a little bit more appealing because they'll be 1, cheaper, and 2, lower owned. Now, I mentioned Lamar Jackson the last time we saw the Pro Bowl in 2020 was great. He played almost the whole first half, but his head coach was John Harbaugh that year. His head coach in real life and in the Pro Bowl, right? It was MVP Lamar. They threw him out there, just let him do his thing. So he played until there was 4 minutes left in the first half. That's probably about a drive or 2 more than the normal quarterback is going to play, including in that Pro Bowl game. Now let's transition to the running back position, and this is also very important. Like I said, Jonathan Taylor, oh my God, he's 9,800, the most expensive player on the slate. Not only because he's the most expensive player on the slate, but because he's a running back in the Pro Bowl. This is a terrible play. It is an awful play. Over the last 5 years, nobody has rushed for more than 33 yards in the Pro Bowl. That is not a mistake. That is not me misspeaking. 33 yards 3 years ago was Ezekiel Elliott, the most that somebody has rushed in the Pro Bowl. Why? They don't run the ball. Why would you run the ball in the Pro Bowl? Why would you force people to tackle you and force injury in the Pro Bowl? All it is drop back passing, deep attempts, deep shots, 15-yard in-breaking routes in the middle of the field, posts, that type of stuff. Running backs do not get rush attempts. And by the way, there's also multiple running backs. So when you're going to play a quarter to a quarter and a half, maybe get 3, 4, 5 at most rushing attempts, how are you supposed to pick up yards on that? So the quick and dirty on this is that running backs really aren't going to play that much. They might see, maybe get a couple of receptions. They might see a couple of receptions. I'm not really that, especially when they're expensive, right? Like if you want to play a running back, just go down to a Dalvin Cook. Just go down to a Najee Harris or James Conner or a Chubb or even a Kyle Juszczyk or a Patrick Ricard. I'm not really interested in Patrick Ricard, but Kyle Juszczyk, a couple years back in 2019, he had a touchdown. He was in the winning lineup. It's kind of random at that point, but he's cheap. He won't be owned. None of these running backs stand out. I would probably prefer quarterbacks and cheaper quarterbacks to the cheaper running backs. At the end of the day, when you have 3 running backs per team, including a fullback, it doesn't look that great. Now, one of the most important things to at least point out for running backs is a running back has to be on the field at all times in the Pro Bowl. That is a rule. They have to be on the field at all times. You can't go empty back set. They have to be on the field, so at least that helps you out a little bit, but there's still 4 per team when you factor in the fullback. It's really tough to identify who exactly is going to be there. There's not much edge at the running back, not a ton of edge at the quarterback outside of just saying, hey, I'm not going to play the expensive guys. If 15% of the field wants to play Jonathan Taylor, that's a terrible play. He's going to see 4 carries. He might see 1 target. He's going to have 20, 30 total yards, and he's going to be sitting there with 3 or 4 fantasy points at $9,800. The only other thing to mention, I think it was actually 2018 Juszczyk was in the winning lineup. 2019 was actually Anthony Sherman, the Chiefs fullback, was the captain because he had a bunch of receiving yards, had a big play, found the end zone. There's only been 4 rushing touchdowns over the last 7 years. Keep that in mind as well. Now we can transition to the wide receiver position, and the most important position is still to come. It's not the wide receivers. There's 3 positions, tight end, defense, kicker after that. The most important position is still to come, so be sure to stick around. Before we get there to the wide receivers in those important positions, the most important one, I want to let you know about the sponsor is prizepicks.com. Player props, betting, whether it's fantasy points, whether it's over-unders on receiving yards, whether it's rushing yards, receptions, all this stuff, you can take over-unders. It's in California, Texas, where I'm located, New York, some states that might not be legal for sports betting. This is because it's fantasy-based. We've been partnered with them for now about a year, and if you use the code SAL, you get a free instant bet up to $100. Prizepicks.com, you take the over-unders. There's a ton of promotions going to be going on for the Super Bowl. They'll likely have props for this Pro Bowl slate. You can use it for other sports as well, NBA every night, right? So be sure to take advantage of it. Instant free bet up to $100. That code is SAL, simple, my name, SAL, on prizepicks.com. And now let's get to this. Actually, you know what? Let's just go right to the most important position, tight end. It's as simple as that. Oh, but tight end in the regular season, it's not that important. No, tight end. Tight end, the tightest of ends. Tight end is the most important position. Why is it the most important position, Sal? Well, why? There's only 4 of them. There's only 2 per team. There's not 3 per team and then 4 per team if you factor in fullbacks like running backs. There's not a ton per team like wide receiver. There's not 3 per team like the quarterbacks. There's 2 per team. 4 total. And the other important thing, just like a running back, a tight end must be on the field at all times. So you're telling me a tight end has to be on the field at all times, and now there's 2 per team. They're going to be playing 50% of the snaps, playing together sometimes, and playing 60 to 70% of the snaps. And this has played itself out. Over the last 2 Pro Bowl slates, 3 tight ends have been in the winning lineup each year. 3 tight ends. The last time that we saw the Pro Bowl in 2020, Mark Andrews was the highest scorer. He was the captain. 9 catches, 10 targets, 70 yards, and a touchdown. Jack Doyle was in the Pro Bowl. He scored a touchdown. You saw Jared Cook at that point, the NFC side, have 3 catches for 80 yards. 3 tight ends scored around 12 or more fantasy points, 2 finding the end zone. They have to be on the field at all times. You have to play these guys. Should you play all 4? I mean, you could. The biggest edge is there. I think you should at least play 1 from each team and maybe dabble in a third. All 4 seems to be a little bit tough, though. The 4th tight end last year was Austin Hooper. I think he caught 1 short area target, only had 1 target. So because of that, all 3 of these tight ends are going to be in play. Travis Kelce, Andrews, Kittle, and Pitts are the tight ends that are currently in there. If you want to just factor in the young guys, I mean, Kyle Pitts at $3,200. He's exciting. He's young. His first Pro Bowl in his rookie year. You might end up seeing him at just $3,200 go out there and play a lot. He can obviously move into wide receiver positions, but so could all of these guys. I think that Kyle Pitts is somebody that won't be blocking all that much. Tight ends in general, I'm not expecting him to block because they're not running. There's no blitzes allowed in, by the way. It's only 3-4 defenses, no blitzes. So these guys, they're going to get advantages. They're going to run routes. They're going to play 50 to 70% of the game. They're all in play. Again, Kelce, Andrews, Kittle, Pitts, you want to play all 4 of them in a lineup? Go for it. Go for it. I mean, these are big upgrades from the Hoopers, as of right now, at least in the Pro Bowl. Big upgrades from the Hoopers and the Jack Doyles and the Jared Cooks that we saw in the 2020 Pro Bowl. These are arguably the 4 best tight ends in the NFL right now, and probably are. So with that now, let's transition. Again, most important position that was. Let's transition to some other important tidbits to talk about, especially when we get to kickers and defenses, but the wide receiver position now. When we get to the wide receiver position, there's a whole lot of wide receivers, right? When you factor in the special teams, you're seeing basically 5 wide receivers per team here. So you get the expensive guys. You get the Deebo Samuels. You get the Justin Jeffersons. It's a little bit more interesting and nuanced than quarterback and running back. I could just say, the expensive guys, I don't know too much. They're all going to play a quarter to 2 quarters, more than likely about a quarter to a quarter and a half, 2 or 3 drives each. You kind of have to find the touchdowns. You have to find the touchdowns. There's some combinations of guys knowing their guys, like Drew Brees threw a touchdown to Michael Thomas. Lamar Jackson threw a touchdown, I believe, to Mark Andrews. Could be wrong there. So some form of correlation if you wanted to stack this up so you can make your wide receiver choices a lot easier if you already have a quarterback in your lineup. For this slate specifically, Devin Duvernay is on the slate. He would be, and I assume because of special teams, Devin Duvernay is on the slate. He would be attached to a Lamar Jackson. Tyreek Hill is on the slate with a Patrick Mahomes. Justin Jefferson is on the slate with a Kirk Cousins. So those are the types of spots that you can look at. For the most part, all of these wide receivers we can say are in play, but there's one thing that I will point out. The one thing I will point out is when you get down to these guys who aren't going to be going downfield on the outside all that much, like a Hunter Renfrow. Loved Hunter Renfrow. He was a fantasy sleeper and darling this year. He had a great year, but when it comes to the Pro Bowl, you're going to get your due from deep passes, or at least, maybe red zone touchdowns, but how do you have more opportunities or more big splash plays? In 2020, DJ Shark has a 60-yard touchdown. Guys on the outside, it's the Pro Bowl. They're having fun. They're going to throw these deep targets. When you're in the red zone, maybe Renfrow can find a touchdown in there, but I want to get the guys who can fire quick. Like Renfrow having 3 catches for 30 yards isn't, even at the price point, isn't paying off. But DJ Shark having 1 catch for a 60-yard bomb, I'll take my chances there. And since it's the Pro Bowl, a lot of these guys fit that mold, but I can probably take off Hunter Renfrow. I'm going to take off Jakeem Grant and Matthew Slater. Those guys are mainly there for special teams, and there's no kickoff returns, so this would be mainly punt returns. And by the way, teams go for 4th down like all the time, we can leave Devin Duvernay on there. He's like a slot guy, but if you wanted to go to a cheap guy to pair up with a Lamar Jackson, I would assume Lamar is probably going to be with Justin Herbert and Mahomes, like the third quarterback in the game, maybe second, which is when Duvernay would be coming in on the AFC side. And then to try and break down some other guys here, I mean, Debo's going to be highly owned. Same with Justin Jefferson, but at least Jefferson's quarterbacks in there. You would assume they get at least one drive, one target, maybe a couple to Jefferson with Kirk Cousins connection. If I scroll down, like guys like this look appealing. Like Stephon Diggs' quarterback is not in the game, but he's only $4,600 for one of the best receivers in the league who can win on the outside often. So I see a Stephon Diggs at a cheap price point. That looks good. I do think people will probably go to it though. Deontay Johnson finally going to get a quarterback upgrade in this game. He's sandwiched between guys like Lamb, Diggs, Evans, who just had better offenses that they were attached to, more name-worthy quarterbacks were in the playoffs. So, I mean, so was Deontay Johnson, but legitimately in the playoffs in terms of actually thinking they had a chance. So maybe he comes in a little bit lower owned and is a sneaky option. I feel pretty good about Tyreek Hill in there because, look, I mean, Mahomes is in this. It's the Pro Bowl, go routes, deep passes. It just lines up for Tyreek Hill's game. So that's somebody that stands out. And the other thing to mention about wide receivers, they have the ability to do a stutter or lift their leg before the snap. So it's not a false start. In the Pro Bowl, you're allowed to do that. So they have a massive advantage over the defense, who already is not playing press coverage, who already is not blitzing or doing anything like that. So Tyreek Hill can literally shimmy shake before the snap, get a guy going that way, and just go up the field. It's pretty crazy. Any receiver could, of course, but Tyreek Hill is the one who's the most dynamic of them all. I think we can agree. So that's where I'm at. Like, wide receiver looks good, trying to take advantage of those small information edges that we have from the rules. The other thing to point out, definitely do not play kickers. They don't attempt field goals in this. They go for fourth downs. Every so often, they'll kick an extra point, but what is those 3 or 4 points going to do for you? And the defenses, you can get to them if you want to. I personally will not be going defense, though. The defenses each scored a touchdown in the 2020 Pro Bowl. Some people might make note of that, write articles about it. It might lead people to go to the defenses. The defenses cannot blitz. There basically will not be sacks in this game. They cannot blitz. They have to play a 3-4 defense. They will not be pressing in this game. There is no kickoff return. So for the special teams points in DFS, that's not going to be happening either. They cannot block the punt. They cannot pressure the punt, so that's not going to be a thing. The only way that it happens is if they have a pick six or a fumble return for a touchdown. They don't run the ball out often, so it's basically going to be pick sixes. We did see that in the 2020 Pro Bowl, but I think it's rare. I think it's unlikely to happen. I think these defenses are overpriced compared to some other guys. I mean, we're just specifically talking here, some guys that have to be under like a $3,200 Kyle Pitts, and you're going to be telling me that a $2,000 defense. I'm not playing kickers or defenses. The guys that obviously stand out, the elite options for me, are going to be the tight ends. Maybe pair them up. If you're playing a Kelsey or you're playing an Andrews, pair them up with their quarterback if you want to. Kyle Pitts makes a lot of sense at $3,200, who will also line up probably as a receiver. And then you scroll down to the wide receivers, and you just have to get lucky. Who's the guy who scores a touchdown? Who's the guy who has a 50 or 60-yard game and a couple of catches? If we try and use some reasoning here, Tyreek Hill makes a lot of sense. Cheaper options like Stephon Diggs, and then trying to correlate the rest of it together. No interest in defenses or kickers. No interest really in running backs. Like, if you wanted to put a running back in, just go to a cheaper wide receiver. They're going to have more opportunities downfield. These running backs each probably see anywhere from 2 to 4 carries, anywhere from 0 to 2 targets. If they're not scoring a touchdown, it's just a guessing game at that point. They're not all that valuable. Only other things to mention, it's going to be a shorter play clock. They're trying out a new rule. They're trying out a new rule where when you win the coin toss, you can place the ball anywhere you want, but then the other team gets to choose if they want offense or defense. So you can't just put it on the 1 yard line, because the other team can say, hey, I'm going to play defense, and you got to go 99 yards, right? So that's an interesting rule they're trying out there. And another rule that they're keeping is if you have a successful field goal attempt, so they're trying to make people kick field goals, not a touchdown, field goal attempt, you can then choose to kick off like you normally do, or give the team at the 25 since there's no kickoffs. Or the other thing is a little more interesting. You can go for 4th and 15 from your own 25-yard line. So another little, maybe we see it, maybe we don't, if somebody actually kicks a field goal in this game. It's going to be a running play clock until a 2-minute warning, so even on incompletions, and the AFC is going for their 5th straight win against the NFC. Just a little fun fact. So there you go. That's as simple as it gets. Kickers and defense is kind of pointless. Expensive running backs and quarterbacks, no real different than the cheapest running backs and quarterbacks in terms of playing time and how these guys are used. Running backs are rarely used. There's rarely rushing touchdowns. There's rarely rushing yards. 33 rushing yards is the most by Ezekiel Elliott over the last 5 years. Wide receivers are fine, and then the tight ends are the elite of the elite when it comes to this, because there's only 2 per team. They got to be out there, and they produce. So thank you for tuning in. My name is Sal Vetri. Hey, if you're not already subscribed to this channel, be sure to subscribe and use the code SAL. Free instant bet up to $100. You don't have to use it on the Pro Bowl. You can use it on the Super Bowl. You're hanging out, having wings with your friends. Even if you're in Texas, California, New York, where it might not be fully legal yet, this is legal. You can use the code SAL for a free bet up to $100. Check it out, prizepicks.com. It's linked in the description. See you when I see you, gang. You all rock, and I'll see you in the next one.